don't need no thought control. Don't stop at sun in the classroom. Teacher leave them kids alone.
Leave those kids alone.
All in all, here to see another brick in the wall. All in all, here to see another brick in the wall. We don't need no education. We don't need no thought control. Talk stuck and sound in the classroom. Teachers leave them kids alone.
Leave those kids alone. I got to say, ladies and gentlemen, this is your boy Seth Garu Baxter with Maker's Bar, where we're creating 1 million leaders today for tomorrow. And I couldn't think of a better way to start off this show with one of my dear friends. He has played at 2 of the music events that we've coordinated through Hip Hop Cafe and Spoken Drum, and at the Last Outpost. He's one of the most talented musicians I've been able to know. And I must say, and he and I and his patience coordinating for us to have this interview, I'm extremely pleased and humbled by his flexibility to join us today. Evan Joffred. Thank you so much, the CEO and coordinator of the Evan Joffred School of Music. Evan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Seth.
Absolutely, Kat. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I just finished up a couple shows this last week. I got some really exciting shows coming up in a couple weeks, right around St. Patrick's Day. We'll be doing some 3-hour rock and roll concerts in the local areas, Oxnard and Thousand Oaks.
So, Oxnard, Thousand Oaks?
Yeah.
Evan, if you don't mind us jumping right into this, tell us where you come from. Where were you born and how did this come into being where you just love music and you were able to share your gift with people?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my story is a long story, but I'll condense it. So I started when I was 12. I was kind of a kid at the time, just searching for, what was the shiniest thing. I tried karate, basketball, different types of sports, things like that. I even did gymnastics and stuff like that. Nothing was really clicking for me. And then Chili Peppers were actually the ones that got my attention, the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I saw a VH1 special, and the bass player, specifically Flea, just the energy and him just going off and slapping the bass and going crazy and slapping the bass. And he was dressed in a skeleton outfit, and he did a backflip off the drum set kind of thing, and it was just amazing, and just got my attention. I'm a little kid seeing this, and I remember telling my parents, I'm like, that's what I want to do for a living. That's what I want to do, right? And then once I saw that and saw how much fun it looked, like just being on stage, rocking out, playing music, that was it for me, man. I was just like, I was hooked. I was like, okay, I got to do this, The next thing I knew, I was picking up a bass guitar. The bass guitar was actually the very first instrument. I still love bass, but electric guitar specifically, is more my career. So I focus on electric guitar. But I love bass, I love acoustic, all that stuff. And then, as a kid, I started taking private lessons. I had multiple teachers. And then, believe it or not, by the time I turned 16 years old, I got my driver's license and I started teaching. I just took it under my wing, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna turn this into a job. I'm gonna turn this into a career. Like, this is what I love. This is what I want to do. And it worked, man. I started pushing myself, and a lot of word of mouth, a lot of just telling people what I do, and one person leading to another person, and before you know it, you got a whole school of students. So that's kind of how it happened for me. I got really lucky, and throughout that entire time of teaching, because here I am, 20 years later, I'm still doing music every day, and also being my career. I've been in and out of 23 something bands, a little bit of touring. I've played with a lot of famous people, just opening for some of those artists. It's been an incredible ride, man. And as of right now, I'm mainly just focusing on solo shows, just playing performances by myself. And what I was just doing right now is using a looper pedal. That's how I was able to layer my rhythm guitar so I can do solos on top. And it's just really fun to be able to kind of just have all your own equipment. So what I'm using right now is the same thing I use on stage, in other words. But yeah, I love it, man. I love every second of it. I wouldn't trade music for anything in the world. So
I wouldn't either. I got to tell you, music has been my life's blood. And even though I don't perform as well as you cats, I have an ear. And my thought is, music definitely resonates within our souls. And it's been one of those soul healing. And no matter what your music appreciation is, I found it to be so much a healing factor in everything that I do. Absolutely. So when did you discover you had the music bug? What age?
Well, I was young. I was 12. I mean, I always loved music. I've been a big time rock and roll metalhead since I can remember, to be honest with you. Like, I grew up on Korn, and
oh yeah, Korn is dope.
And and then, but the one that really did it for me, honestly, was Metallica. I remember getting my very first physical album that I held in my hand was the Black Album, back in the 90s, and I remember just listening to that. I had my headphones, and just here I am, a little kid in the corner, just like rocking out, doing the horns and everything. I'm like 9 years old, and my mom and dad are just like, uh-oh, like, this guy's going to be a total metalhead rock and roller. He's already doing it at a really young age. And they were right. I mean, I have never stopped since. Like, I listen to metal and rock and roll every day. But I mean, I love all kinds of music, funk, classical, you name it. Jazz is great too. But yeah, that was it for me, man. When I started really getting into those bands, I idolized them, and they became my heroes. And they kind of became my teachers in a way. I remember when I was 15 years old, when I was first really digging into lessons, that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to start turning on all my favorite songs and see if I could figure out how to play them. And that's when my ear training really took over, where I was just like, I would just take a Metallica record, throw it in the CD player, back when CD players were around. Now it's just all streaming, but the ancient CD player device. And And yeah, I would just take some of my favorite bands, some of my favorite songs. I'd do bass and guitar and just make a game out of it. Oh, let's see if I can figure this one out. Let's see if I can figure that one out. And just start throwing them in the CD player. And I mean, sometimes I would clock in like 6 hours a day of just playing music, just constantly playing music. I started missing meals. But yeah, no, I don't regret any of it, man, because it made me what I am today. So it's been an amazing experience.
When you say it made you who you are today, who are you today?
Well, I mean, besides like who I am as a person, I consider myself a successful professional musician, and I don't think I would have reached that level if I didn't take it as seriously as I did. The amount of hours and digging that I put into music really paid off for me. It really took me places that I didn't think I would go. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. When you say it made you who you are today, who's Evan Joffred?
Well, I mean, obviously I'm a musician, but other than that, I've just built so many great friendships. I've learned a lot of just being with people, building connections with different people, seeing the ins and outs, the ups and downs. There's been experiences that have helped me build a tougher skin, because there's been a lot of things I've gone through in the music industry, different situations I'd rather not talk about, but let's just say not as good situations. But there's also be a lot of great situations. So as far as it making me who I am, I feel like I react to things differently because of the things I've experienced with music. Being able to just like connect with the good, and then something that's not connecting with you, like you need to learn how to walk away from it, things like that. And just doing what like you're worth, and not allowing anyone to take advantage of you, because that does happen a lot with musicians in the music industry and just in general. And then just so many great experiences, so many great nights, great memories of being on stage, meeting amazing people, conversations that were just incredible that you'll never forget, things like that. So,
Evan, if you don't mind me asking, just kind of throwing it out there, give us one of your originals.
Yeah, no, of course. So I decided to choose the very first original.
Yes.
That I created. I thought that would be appropriate for this.
Thank you, brother. We really appreciate it. Dig it.
Mm-hmm. This one means a lot to me because when I was like in my early 20s, I was just kind of strumming and trying to sing, and it was very hard to do because playing and singing at the same time is a whole nother thing. So I started off just doing some chords, just kind of like the evolution of the song I'm about to play, like and just things like that, and then kind of like humming a melody with it. And then I just kept digging until I got it, and that's what spawned everything, being able to sing and play at the same time. And now that's the main thing I do when I'm on stage. But anyway, without further ado, this is my first original. I wrote it about my love for music.
Dig it. Oh, this is going to be dope.
Yeah, and this one's called Radio. So, but yeah, check this out. So it goes like this.
Driving down the road next to turning up the audio, hearing all these sounds they stick like glue, feeling like an animal, thinking like my mind is out of tune, locked up in the studio. Now it's time to give my ears some food. music from the core. We're searching for much more. Listening to the radio, counting down the clock that sets the rules, running for the telephone, ringing in my brain, it's loud and cruel, bringing out the unknown, digging into thoughts that have no proof, feeling like we're on our own. Music will save us with its truth. What are we waiting for? Music at the door, laying on the floor. So get up and soar. What are we living for? The music from the core. We're searching for much more. Music will save our audience. We will reach down mountain goal. We will soon feel whole. What are we waiting for? Music at the door, laying on the floor. So get up and soar. What are we waiting for? The music from the core. We're searching for much more. Listening to the radio, listening to the radio, listening to the radio, listening to the radio.
Describe, elaborate on the meaning of that.
Yeah, so there's a couple different things that go into it. So for one thing, the first verse, like listening to the radio, driving down a road that splits in two, right? So like what that is, that just kind of relates to everybody. Like, I mean, because the average person's when they're driving, they're turning on the radio, right? But when it gets into the chorus, that's when it gets a little bit more deeper for me independently, what music means to me, like what listening to the radio, listening to music as a full means to me. And that's when it goes into like, what are we waiting for, right? So what I mean by that is like waiting for music at the door. It could be new music. It could be something to uplift you. Like if you're having, a rough day or something like that. The second line says, get up and soar. So what I mean by that is like when you're laying, because like laying on the floor, right? So that means like you're just kind of like going through something. You're tired. It could be you had a bad day, whatever it is. And the music is like what's lifting you up, right? Like get up and soar, get up and fire. Like let that music fuel you. Let it be your fire, right? And that's what it's been for me, man. Like since the beginning of what feels like my entire life, to be honest. Like it's been the most therapeutic and also fun. Like it's not even just that it's therapy, like if you're having a bad day, but it's also like the most fun, uplifting thing I've ever done. You know, even if you're not on stage, just like the actual act of playing music. But then when you put it on to being on stage, it's like a whole nother ball game, you know? But yeah, that's kind of what it's about. The song itself is about, listening to the music and allowing the music to like uplift you, like bring you out of a funk, or even just to enjoy it, even if you're happy, you know, like whether you're happy or sad, like music hits you in such a profound way that nothing else can.
I mean, tell the people. We have a number of people that I might have even heard. A couple of people very interested to hear what you have to say. Why do you want to lift up people? What is the necessity of that? Discuss that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. So I mean, me personally, I think it's important to be a light in the darkness, as an example. So like, there's obviously a lot of dark energies, and things that happen in the world and just in general. And I think that music is one of those things that just cuts through. It's like a bright light that just cuts through some of the stuff, whether it's a problem at work or a relationship or finances, you name it, whatever. Like music can be that oxygen that people so desperately need to like not only give them hope, but also just to like change their mood. Just one song, there's a quote coming back to me. I don't know if I'm going to quote it right, but one song can turn a bad day into a good day. It's something like that I heard.
Oh, Evan, you know what, Kat? At our party at Last Outpost, you said that. I will not forget that. It's one of the reasons why I was so glad you interviewed with us. So, Steve Comstock, who did the guitars, he built the guitars for Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison, etc. And you came on right after him, and you said that. I never will forget that, brother. It was one of our things that made me always recognize your brilliance, because the fact that you tapped into that spiritual sense. And for me, music is a spiritual sense. And that night, I stood in front of the stage while you played your guitar, Kat. I have the video footage, and I had these red lights coming over you and so forth. It was the dopest thing ever. And you mentioned that before you even said that. I never forgot that. It's one of the reasons why I was so glad to be able to share some of your musician genius with our audience today. And I always remember it. I'm so glad you brought that up tonight.
Yeah, and honestly, man,
or today.
Yeah, the thing that's so rewarding too, like goes along with that same topic, is like, not only do I get to like see it happening with my audience members when I'm performing, like people will sing along, I'll see people get out of their chairs and start dancing. It's like I'm one guy on stage. I don't even have a band, and I'm still able to have that effect on somebody, right? There's been times where I've been on stage and my tip jar has been filled to the brim like 3 times in a row before I can even finish the first set.
So brother, you still perform for tips. You still do tips too.
I mean,
You're one of the working artists.
I have an actual rate every time I perform, but I always put the tip jar out because it's just standard, you know, because it just adds.
Well, I don't want people to get it twisted. You are very successful. I more so wanted to mention you do tips that cats like yourself. I know your brilliance has already brought out a number of different people, and I know some of your catalog a great deal. So I just feel that your talent that you mentioned in the tips part is just one of those things where we connect with, and I just appreciate the authenticity.
Well, I mean, to be fair, man, like when I first really started like getting the bravery, because it takes some bravery to get out there and sing and play guitar at the same time. It's a very difficult thing to do, even just one song. So the origin of me becoming a solo artist, it's actually kind of an interesting story that I'll share. I started just playing on the streets, man. I got my acoustic guitar and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go show the world what I can do. And I went out there, and this applies to anything in life, but with music, it was cool because I was able to grab a tip jar, my acoustic guitar at the time, and I just started posting up in different spots, man. I went in front of Whole Foods and started playing. I went in front of
okay, I know. I see the stuff. I want people to know.
Yeah. I went in front of Trader Joe's, like grocery stores, all that stuff. I did. The biggest one I did was in Santa Barbara on State Street. That was cool. Funny story that I'll make it brief, but I'm performing and I'm doing my thing right in front of a restaurant, like on State Street. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this is a little risky. Like, they could easily shut me down. I don't have a permit. I'm just doing it because I love music. I'm playing. And I remember in the middle of a Rolling Stones song, I'll never forget it because it was a specific song.
Wait, hold up, Cat. Which
Yeah,
Rolling Stone song?
it was Wild Horses, I believe. Yeah. I'm super rusty on
Yo,
right now, but that's what the one that I was playing at the time.
can you give us a little jam of that?
Sure.
And if you're not, it's okay, brother.
Yeah, I'd rather not, just because it's been years.
Dig it, no worries. Let's go
But
back.
I have a Doors song for later though. That's even better than that. Way better than that one. Yeah. So I'm playing it, and this guy comes out and he starts looking at me. He's walking towards me, and I go, "Oh, great, this guy's gonna shut me down, right?" So I pause and I kind of stop and I'm looking at him like, "Hey, how's it going?" And he's like, "I'm like, is this your restaurant?" I'm like, "Sorry if I'm too loud." And he looks at me and goes, "How much do you charge?" So like I was kind of baffled by it because it didn't even cross my mind to try to get a gig at the time. I was just doing my thing, and that was what started everything. Like he took me in, and I started playing there weekly. It was in Santa Barbara, so it was a little bit of a drive because I'm in Thousand Oaks, but I didn't care because I just wanted to play. So I kept driving there and driving there and driving there, and started making good acquaintances. I made he was giving me like $100 an hour, I think it was, for performing, and then tip jar, of course. And then from there, it just started sparking, dude. It started just snowballing. Before I knew it, I started getting residencies at all kinds of different venues and places. I was averaging there the last 2 years. I was averaging about eight to 10 shows a month. I want to say, give or take. So that's a lot. It's a little bit slower at the moment, probably because of the time of season. But I think once spring and summer hit, hopefully it'll get back to that same place.
For sure.
Yeah.
Evan, if you don't mind, describe about your school of music. Tell our audience about your school of music a little bit more.
Right. So I actually currently am open for new clientele if anybody is interested. I do online and I do in person. So the way that it works is a student signs up. It's pretty much customized. So I specialize in ear.
Customize, if you don't mind. Can I interrupt you? Customize in what sense? Go into that if you.
Yeah. So the reason why I say customized is because there's so many different styles of music. There's so many different approaches to music. Even if you're just doing one instrument, one student might want Metallica. Another student might want Bob Marley. Another student might want something like the Chili Peppers. Like they're totally different genres and flavors. So as a teacher, I need to be able to teach everything that there is as far as genre, right, and technique. So my approach is pretty much like I try to teach the theory. So like theory being the keys, the scales, the chords, and the rhythms. Those are like the four main components that you need. If you learn those four components, it kind of opens up everything. Because there's always going to be like a mixture of those things happening when you're playing any song. Okay. So once I get them kind of like a foundation of that, like the basic theory, then I just ask them like, what kind of style of music do you like? Like what do you listen to? Sometimes I will give them songs that I think are good for them, even if they haven't heard it, things like that. But I take it in baby steps, man, like very small baby steps. So customizing, it's great because one student might want something different than the other student. So it's like that kind of a thing where you have to really gauge it accordingly to every single client because all the clients are a little different,
So Evan, you do a lot of work with your foundation with young people. How did that come about? Explain that process.
Yeah, so the origin of when it got kicked off was actually because my mom was running her own dance school. And that's where it all kind of started. I was young, really young at the time. I was only like 15, 14 maybe even. And I remember she had like a school of students that she was teaching dance, and some of the girls that were taking dance had like a brother, right? And then they would be like interested in learning guitar. And then that's when my mom actually was the one who kind of got the idea. And then at first it almost started off as like a joke, like, oh, I'll just get my driver's license, and once I start driving, I'll just start teaching guitar. And that's actually exactly what happened. As soon as I got my driver's license, man, I was just teaching. It all started house to house and home. So mainly in Simi Valley, because that's where the dance school was. So I was teaching in Simi Valley was like my starting point, and I was going house to house. I only had like maybe a handful here and there, and then it started to spawn and grow and grow and grow. And then I've had my own private music studio for a while now, like going on 5 to 6 years of just my own private studio. And even prior to that, I was doing it still in my own studio, but now it's like an actual studio, like where I'm at right now. As you can see, there's the guitars in the background and all that. So it's just kind of evolved, man. And it's just grown and grown, and it's incredible to look back on the history of it, you know. But in my career, I've probably taught over 200 to 300 people, to be honest, throughout my whole career. So lots.
Why was your school so important to you?
Well, I mean, it's definitely my main career. First of all, it's my main bread and butter, but it's also just I want to be able to impact people with music the way that music's impacted me, if that makes sense. Like I want to be an influencer, right? Where I can have somebody who's involved, and it's not even just about teaching or, you know, making a paycheck. It's also about giving something as amazing as music and playing a musical instrument to the next generation, to somebody who might need it in their lives, right? To have something to grasp onto. And I'll be honest with you, man, there's some people that I know for a fact I've changed their lives through teaching them guitar. I won't go into too much detail, but I've had some special needs situations where I've taught guitar to certain people that had specific things going on. And even like the parents are just like, you've changed my kid's life, you know? So
I do know. I have some of the stuff you and I talked about some of our parties up at Last Outpost, but I've worked with the special needs industry for a good while, and music is very instrumental, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted people to understand about your school and what your school does, and in addition to some of the healing factors of music.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, just obviously I won't use any names, but just as an example, I've had autistic, Asperger's, severe depression, people that have taken with me. One kid was really a funk, and his parents literally hired me to kind of pull him out of that, and it worked, man. Like he's like professional status now. He plays with bands and everything. He's like really, really talented kid. And when he first started, like he couldn't even get one note. And I worked with him for 6 to 7 years. He's like one of my longest lasting students. And I worked with him for a long time, and he just turned into a musician, you know? I mean, it took time. It took time because, you know, obviously you got to practice and all that. But I worked a little extra harder with him because I knew what he was going through. So yeah, it's just a testimony to if you put the energy into it and you really want something, I believe you can get it. I believe you can reach where you want to be with anything in life, but music's just an example, you know.
So why do you feel so compelled to go into this area, Kat? You know, this area is not easy. You know, I worked in this arena of things for a long time. Mm-hmm. Why for you? Why is this important to you?
You mean in the location wise, or just music?
No, your school.
Oh, my school. So, I mean, I've always liked kids. I remember when I was in school, I would wish that I had like a teacher that was like a little bit more like fun relating with. There was a lot of teachers in school that I didn't connect with. There were some that I did. So that was another reason why teaching was kind of an attractive thing for me to realize, like, what if I became like a teacher that was like, you know, like one of those teachers that was like really cool to the students and like that they had a lot of fun with, you know, like, so like I have a lot of the time I'll have students tell me like, oh, I look forward to this every week because you're so much fun to learn from and to have, you know, play music with and stuff like that. And so that's definitely sparked the interest, like the idea of working with kids, working with people of all ages and different walks of life, and to be able to take my ultimate passion, which obviously is music, and to be an entrepreneur, launch a business in that way. It's just kind of almost like a dream come true, to be honest. And the way that it happened was just so natural. It was like it meant to be kind of thing.
I get that.
Yeah. And like, don't get me wrong, like my ultimate dream is still to be like an artist, which I am, but you know, like a known artist, like to get to that level where like, oh, people know who I am, like they they hear my name and they're like, oh, that's that solo artist, or that's that guy who's doing the rock and roll
You're
stuff.
doing that.
And it's starting to build to an extent, but just like keep on getting it to that point where your name is known, people know who you are, they're looking for your shows, you're building a fan base, all that type of stuff. And it has happened to an extent. It's building slowly. I even have some people that were like literally just come out to my shows because they know I'm playing there, which is an incredible feeling, to know that people are showing up because you're providing entertainment, you're playing songs that they love. I mainly do covers nowadays because it's just, not only is it
I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, not only is it what gets you hired, but honestly, man, that's what the audience wants. It just is. Like, originals are amazing. I love originals. I have probably over 100 originals that I've written. Most of them have never been heard. But I have a lot of different originals, mainly like alternative rock and roll genre, like the song I just played. That's kind of the genre that I'm going for. But my covers are like super extended. Like I have like over 200 to 300 something covers that I play, that I alternate and switch around, and everything rock and roll. I mainly do classic rock, but I do alternative rock, grunge rock, all that stuff, anything rock. And people eat it up, man. Like I get up there and I start playing, I'll do like Journey, Pink Floyd, The Doors, Van Halen, all that stuff. The Beatles, I do a lot of Beatles, Rolling Stones, like I mentioned earlier. And every time, like I start throwing out that song list, and people are like turning their heads. You see people walking up, people start singing with, like, because they know every single song. So it's like it gets the audience's attention, and the venues like it too, because they know that the audience wants to hear number one, like top hits on the radio, right? That's what's going to get that flow going. And so that's been my approach. That's what I've been focusing on for the last 2.5 years now, is like my main thing, along with the school, of course, but as far as being a performer.
Tell me, the most important inspiration in guiding you towards your music was who?
So a lot of the influences throughout my life have been just famous musicians more than actual teachers. I have had some good teachers at Musicians Institute. I studied with some different people, and they kind of laid out a lot of the theory and a lot of, like, just knowing the neck. So that was huge, really helpful, knowing all the keys, knowing all the scales, everything like that. And I took it upon myself to transfer, because I was actually learning just bass, believe it or not. That was like my thing. I was doing a little bit of guitar here and there. But I didn't really dig into guitar until I was like 15, 16. I started playing music when I was 12. So that was 3 years of just bass. And then what I ended up doing is I ended up transferring everything that I was learning from the teachers on bass to guitar, because it's all the same theory, it's all the same keys, all the same scales. The biggest thing I had the obstacle was getting the higher strings, right? Because bass is only 4 strings. But it's all the same anatomy. And then that was the exact same time that I started teaching guitar. When I transferred everything into guitar, that's when I started getting business, and I realized, like, wow, guitar is like literally 1,000 times more popular than bass. Even though I love bass, bass is an amazing instrument, but everybody wants to play guitar. So that was not only a marketing move, but also just the realization, like, I needed to master this instrument, because this is where the business is. This is where the clientele is going to be, right? So that's what I did. And I'll be honest, I mean, every day, man, I'm learning something new. Every day I'm trying different things. Like, it's one of those instruments where you could be playing your entire life and you still don't feel like you've even scratched the surface yet.
I think that's true. Well, you know what? That is what I hear from all my guitar cats.
Yeah,
Steve Comstock, who performed the same night you performed, he's one of my cats, and he said sometimes you have to take a step away for a second so your music intuition can rejuvenate. And I wondered that's part of the process, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you have to press the reset button. There's even times, believe it or not, where I'll take like a day off. It's rare, but I do, just to hit that reset button, kind of like refresh. I'm really big into fitness nowadays, so that's another reason why I do that, is to make sure that I stay.
Wait, Kat. Musicians into fitness? What's that?
I know, right? No, yeah, I go to the gym multiple times a day, and the reasoning behind that, not only because it's healthy and I love it and it's fun, but just a little backstory real quick. I played so much guitar and bass when I was a teenager that I actually gave myself tendonitis. I started
Oh, wow.
getting throughout both of my arms because I just wouldn't put the instruments down. So it was like an overuse injury because I played to the point where I was hurting myself, right? So I don't advise that. You start feeling
Yeah,
pain,
definitely.
stop playing for a little while. But the good news is I had a physical therapist who completely healed me and secured me, and ever since then I've been exercise routine, and I haven't had an issue since. So just having that, being able to balance it. I don't play 6 hours a day anymore. I do more like 2 or 3 at the most, kind of thing. But I do usually play every single day. Not only because I'm practicing for shows, but also because I'm teaching. So all of that.
And then tell us about your process since you're teaching and since some of this stuff you said. So, what is your process like in that teaching?
Mhm. Well, I mean, like I said, everybody's different, so you have to kind of like go off of the student as an individual. I try to gauge with the scales and the chords to see how they react to either. Some students will react really well to both. Others will be like really strong with chords and then not so strong with the scales, right? So you have to kind of like take it in baby steps and gauge it off of where the student is. And then I always incorporate the songs, like cover songs. I'll usually teach like a couple rock riffs or just like something like that that they'll recognize, that they'll like. Smoke on the Water is a go-to. Everybody knows that song. So that's an example. Yeah, and then like once I feel like the student is kind of getting it, like okay, they're at a spot now where they can probably advance, then I'll just ask them the question like, what are your goals? Like what do you want to play? What's your why are you playing music? Like what's your focus? What are your intentions?
Real quick, hold on that. What's the answer you hear most when you say why do you want to play? What's the answer you hear most?
To be honest, it can be vague sometimes. Some people are just there because their parents told them to come.
Okay,
that,
but what's the
that,
most
that,
specific?
that can be a reason. The most specific, usually, what I hear is oh, I really like this band, right? Like they have a specific band or artist that they want to emulate, which makes a lot of sense because it's like if you're listening to someone, you're looking up to a specific artist, you're gonna want to learn their music, and so a lot of the time that's what I'll get. Like, oh, I love Metallica or I love Black Sabbath or I love Led Zeppelin, whatever it is. Luckily for me, 90% of my clientele loves the music that I love. So not only do I get to teach guitar for a living, which is like a dream come true, but I get to teach the style of music that I like live for, right? Because I specialize in rock and roll and heavy metal, and people that will come to me, that's 9 times out of 10, that's what they want, you know. And then every now and then you'll get someone who wants to learn like Taylor Swift or country or some kind of totally different genre than what I usually play, but obviously I'm still going to teach it because that's what I do. I teach every style that there is. Because like sometimes you'll get like like teenage girls or little things like that, and they're
Oh
gonna
yeah,
want
that's
they're
it.
gonna want more like the pop and the country and all that stuff, right? And even though it's not my favorite genre of music, I have studied all genres of music, so I know how to teach even music that I don't listen to, right?
Is
Because
jazz one of those? Jazz is one of my favorites. So I'm curious, what's your perspective
yeah,
on jazz?
so jazz is really rare for people to want to learn. Just to be completely honest, I almost never teach jazz. But a fun fact is jazz is actually somewhat of my origin because when I was doing the MI thing, there was so much jazz. There was so many chord charts, different types of the charts were just so complex with the way that they changed the beats and the meters and the chord. Like jazz is definitely one of the hardest genres to play. Um, I would say the next, well, rock and roll and heavy metal definitely take the cake for two reasons. One, there's a lot more complexity happening within the guitar parts, bass parts, drum parts, and then not to mention that the tempo is totally hiked up on top of that. So it's like your pieces are really intricate and crazy, and then also it's fast. So that's why rock and metal, like in my opinion, nothing even comes close as far as style of.
Melodies and etc.
Yeah, it's by far the most challenging to play, and that's coming from somebody who's played every genre that there is. So classical, jazz, I would say, would be underneath that, because those are both very intense as well.
It's
Pop
very interesting to me because I knew you had a jazz influence, but I don't think your audience knows that because I've seen you play even before we did the Last Outpost. So
Yeah.
having jazz as an influence is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, jazz is fun, man. Like it's not something I listen to very often, but I like just doing like little improv.
Blasphemy, blasphemy.
Yeah, I mean, no, I will listen to it, but I'm just so focused on rock and metal. That's the thing. Is like that's like
for sure.
That's like how I breathe, pretty much.
For sure. And no, I'm just teasing, but yes, I get that.
Mm-hmm. Totally. No, but yeah, man, my goals as of right now, to be honest, like there's a couple goals that are currently in the oven. One is I'm always trying to expand my school, so because there's tons of ebb and flows. So the school is still stable. Things are really good right now, but I mean, I'm always trying to add. I want to get as many students as I can handle. You know what I mean? So that's why I do online. Like I'll do Zoom, I'll do, FaceTime, whatever the student prefers. If like let's say they're in a different state. As an example, I've got one kid that lives in Tennessee. I'm in California, and then another one who's actually one of my best students lives in Boston. So and they're consistent, man. They take weekly. And I just send them a link, and they click on the link, and we do just like what you and I are doing, except it's teaching, right? And then I email them the lesson. So that's the way that system works. 90%, actually more like 99%, are in person. They will come to my studio. I'll write things out by hand and give it to them, or email them things like that. Teach them all the techniques, teach them the songs, and then there's a small percentage that I go house to house, but it's rare, where I'll do home lesson. So yeah, and the goal is to just try to get as many clients as possible back to back. But as far as artist wise, I would really like to have my band again. I did have a pretty awesome rock band that I was fronting called Exit 15. You probably remember that.
Oh, bro, yeah, Cat. I remember. Before we connected with Last Outpost, I remember going to hear your band back in the day. And I'm not trying to date us, but you cats were really seriously dope. I do remember.
Yeah, so the most recent, because there's been two versions of Exit 15. The first one was
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, the first one was with the guys from the Shakedown, right? That was back when I was like in my early 20s.
Shakedown, Mark Ike. Yeah. Shout out to Arc Mike.
Yeah, and then and there's actually supposed to be a relaunch on that, hopefully within the near future. We just had one at the Twist out in Ventura for a little while, but unfortunately it didn't continue. So we're trying to relaunch. Probably gonna find a different venue. I'll do what I can to help with that. But the reason why I mention it is because the newer version was the version that was successful. That was the one where we were playing and bigger things. We actually ended up doing a festival in front of 3,000 people out in the Warner Park, which is the kind of like more like the Valley area.
Yeah, I'm very familiar. I go out there to see my son. Yeah.
Yeah, we opened for the Queen Nation band, the Queen Tribute. And that was like honestly one of the biggest highlights of my entire music career, because it was just so amazing to like be on a big stage like that in front of that many people. Like I played in like 1,000 people here and there, throughout my career, but it's rare. But this was like at least 3, maybe even 4,000 people. It was like a huge event. And I know that's not like huge. Like obviously these famous bands playing for like hundreds of thousands of people, but for me it was a big deal. So it just felt great to do something like that. It was very, very much of a milestone. But unfortunately, there were some variables with the rhythm section. I won't go into detail, but the band kind of just fell apart. So ever since that happened, I've been digging into the solo career. And it's interesting because I've been in 23 to 24 something bands, and the solo career is the most successful thing I've ever done, besides the music school. The music school is been very successful, but the solo career, man, like, because when I was in a band, I had like maybe 2 to 3 shows every like 4 to 6 months, give or take. It was like literally that scarce. And now, man, it's like I'm playing like multiple shows a week here and there. Like At the moment I'm not, but I had like a couple years there where it was like just bam, 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 like one gig after another, you know? So I'm working to get back to that same momentum, but the music industry, the arts industry in general, anything that's artistic is going to have a roller coaster effect. Where
Yeah, and you know what? Here's the thing, with the music industry, some people don't know how incredible you stopped the audiences at the Last Outpost. Last Outpost was one of those events where you and I worked together on having musicians come there, and people just were flabbergasted by your talent. I remember that show that day, and you were amazing. And a number of people have asked, "Hey, Seth, when are you going to have Evan and those cats up there?" So we really were impressed with that. And I'm just looking forward to all that stuff you're getting ready to do. Yeah.
I would love to get some more things going for sure, man. I'm in the process of trying to get some more venues. There are a lot of venues that have been great to me that have had me in rotation. The rate's been well, the tips, exposure, et cetera, you name it, it's all been a great experience. But unfortunately, there are also a ton of venues that don't even give you a chance. They'll kind of just close the door in your face in a way. And I'm not going to say any names, but there are some places where it's like I'm trying to send them my music. And so it can be very challenging and discouraging because it's like you're trying to build that thing, which is why you have to just have the mentality, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going, like have the tough skin. Like if something doesn't work out, you just go on to the next thing, right? You just keep on doing that until something does work out. There's a saying that for every 10 no's, you might get one yes.
That's it. And
that's exactly, exactly what it is when you're trying to get gigs,
Yeah. So. Well, dig it. I got to tell you, Evan, you've been one of the cats that your voice and the energy that you put into it and your spirit that comes across in your music, I have been looking forward to it for some time. And I'm just so glad you are appreciative and flexible enough to be able to communicate with Makers Bar audience. I'm thankful that you took the time out with us today. Are there any other websites or anything? Oh no, dude, we need to do one of your originals again. So grace us with your presence.
Yeah, if you want, I can do two more. One more. It's up to you.
I like that. Let's do it, Kat.
Cool. So I'll do another original, and then I'll end with a cover because I have a cover I really want to play.
Sounds good, brother.
So this next one is actually kind of somewhat along the lines of what we're just talking about, how it's like keeping that perspective, like no matter what's going on, like try to keep the perspective. And this one, as I wrote this song specifically for that reason, it's called Glass Half Full. So it's like, look at it glass half full instead of glass half empty. So that's how this song impacted me. So this is a pretty cool melodic one.
Oh, brother, this is great.
tight. Keep a clear perspective because the glass is still half full. Fires won't stop burning. Watch our world move. Keep a clear perspective because the glass is still half full. Fire's burning high, colors transforming, ashes in the sky. The world's been forming, frosty light. Optimism burning like it's the end of all time. Oceans of mystery, feel the tide pull. Keep a clear perspective because the glass is still half full. Fires won't stop burning. Watch our world burn. Keep a clear perspective because the glass is still half full. 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 Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that one means a lot to me too because yeah, it's just like overcoming, like, you know, you're starting to look at things the wrong way, you flip it around, and I believe that you can find a positive in any situation if you look deeper.
I do too.
Look deep
I'm
enough,
so glad you said
no matter
that.
what it is,
I'm so glad.
and that's like honestly, like at the end of the day, like I mean, human nature is to lean towards the negative. So that's one of the reasons why I wrote that song, because it's like it's so important to find that silver lining no matter what's going on, to be able to see the glass half full instead of the glass half empty, right?
I think a number of people don't know where to look anymore. I've said this in a couple of different interviews. They don't know where to look anymore. And persons like yourself who write music that identifies where we're trying to seek comfort and support of other people, I think we're looking for that. And I think that's the perfect timing for it.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely, man. Cool.
I got to tell you, I remember when Arc Mike had one of the events and I had come to the thing and I had approached you saying, yo, Kat, this music was dope because you always had a full heart in trying to express what the music meant to you. And so I remembered that your receptive nature was just like, oh, yeah, let's do it. And Last Outpost was one of those places where we can curate a loving environment for musicians. And you were always one of the musicians that always tried to provide a loving and accepting environment. So I'm so glad you joined us today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm happy to be here. I mean, I'm definitely one of those musicians who puts my all into it.
I know
the way I see it is like, what's the point in doing something if you're not going to do it with all of your effort, you know, all of your heart? And I mean, it's cool because like I purposely chose this route because I fell in love with music when I was at a very young age. And, you know, they say that if you can figure out a way to build a career doing what you love, you never work a day in your life because you're doing what you love. Right. That's
what I'm understanding now, brother. That's what I'm understanding now, brother.
Yeah.
With the podcast and having cats like you, I really want the audience to know cats like yourself, and there's a number of other cats, Chester Copperpot, Kanye West, even a number of different cats that have really wanted to express certain sides of themselves that they haven't been able to do because of the mainstream music industry. But in particular, your voice has always been a very important, poignant part of what I've understood about writing and what I missed about music writing. So I'm so glad that you were able to share that with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure, man.
Now, so Evan, where can people reach you to get in contact with you for the music school? And where can people get in touch with you for
So a couple of different things. If you could maybe, I don't know, send this somehow, but the Instagram pages are really the best. So the first Instagram page would be my personal, which is EJ Music 1988. So it's just my initials, music 1988, year I was born. EJ Music 1988. Then there is the acoustic page, which might be a little easier to remember. That's Evan J Acoustic. So it's just my first name, last initial, acoustic. Evan J Acoustic. And then the page for the actual school is EJ School of Music.
Dig it. And
Yeah.
then what is the message you mostly want to convey to up and coming entrepreneurs and not only them, but people who are interested in teaching music and or going into your profession? What would you suggest to them?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is just never give up. I mean, it sounds like a cliche thing to say, but it's true because it's like
It's very true and applicable.
you're gonna run into obstacles. You're gonna run into a lot of ups and downs. Anything in this industry is like that. I mean, I've been through a crazy amount of that type of stuff, but it's so worth it once you get on the other side. It's almost like to have that phrase, like, you know, you have to walk through the valley or whatever before you come up on the mountain or something like that, right? So what I mean by that is like, especially if you're starting from scratch, you gotta keep in mind that there's going to be a lot of red tape that you're going to have to cut down in order to get to where you want to be. Unless you just get really lucky, which is rare. But I got lucky in a sense, but I also definitely had to work really hard to get to where I am. The word of mouth, 100%, I would say is the biggest tool for something like this. I've tried ads, I've tried business cards, social media, you name it. Word of mouth has always been my biggest tool for
It
giving
really
money.
is the best way, brother.
Yeah.
That has not changed. I find even with some of the stuff we do for the podcast and for the music stuff, I still do as well. Word of mouth is still really the best vehicle.
Huge, man, for like anything like that, because it's even
For
happened
sure,
with my
for sure.
shows. My shows are like that too, to be honest, because I'll perform and then someone will talk about me to like someone else, and then before you know it, a venue hiring me that I never even contacted. And I'm like, how do you even know who I am? Like, oh, I got your name from so and so, right? And it's the same thing with the lessons. Like I'll get random phone calls and random text messages of people that I have no idea who they are, and they're like, oh, I heard you're, you know, teaching guitar and my son or daughter's interested, whatever it is, right? And then before you know it, I got a new client. So yeah, word of mouth is the biggest tool. I would say next to that would be just exposure. Like I use Craigslist sometimes. I use social media of all sorts, mainly Facebook and Instagram. I don't use TikTok and YouTube too much, but I'm still starting to get into it a little bit. So yeah, just like having those tools on hand for any entrepreneur, for anyone who's trying to launch their own thing. That's a huge piece of it. And then if you have partnership, it's even better. And what I mean by that is having like advocates. So I have advocates that will post things without me even knowing about it. Like a good friend of mine, she'll post the things on the Caneo Valley Moms Facebook page about guitar lessons. She's gotten me clients by doing that, you know? So yeah, having people in your corner, having like a team, that's a part of it as well.
Well, I want to say, Evan, Joffred, thank you so much for joining us tonight with Make Us Bar. And I totally already said to you, I appreciate how you spent some time to be able to move your schedule over. We're looking forward to people being able to be in contact with you, and thank you. If you've enjoyed this content tonight from Make Us Bar, please press like, subscribe, and share, and let people know about the artists that we have on here. A number of you have already become familiar with Seth Garou and the artist. Evan Joffred has been one of those cats I've been in contact with for a while, and I like to spotlight the talent and genius of some of the brothers that have been doing stuff like that, like this brother right here. Please check him out and what he's able to do. The Lovolution begins with you. It is a revolution that we've always wanted. Peace, love, and good night. Press like and subscribe. Evan, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, brother. We're looking forward to talking to you sooner. Sounds good?
Cool, man. Yeah.
All right. Good.
Are we
Any
still
last
recording?
words you want to say? We are
Uh,
still recording. Yes. Any last words on people contacting or touching base?
yeah. So just check out the Instagram pages. If you want to find me on Facebook, just type in my first and last name and I'll come right up. So that would just be EvanJoffred, red like the color. So Evan Joffred, you can look me up directly on Facebook. That might be the easiest way. Or the Instagram pages that I mentioned earlier.
We look forward to that. And do you have a LinkedIn page you want them to contact you through also for business?
Yeah, for that it would just be the same, just my first and last name. I don't use LinkedIn too often, but it is another resource.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Brother Evan Joffred, thank you so much for joining us tonight. People of the Makers Bar audience, we love you and we're looking forward to seeing you next time. Take good care. Evan Joffred, thank you, brother.
Thanks, bro.
Peace and love and good night.
All right. You still there? Yeah.